Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Zordoth here, and in today's video, we are going to be doing something a little bit new, and that is reading true Reddit stories. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and I'm finally getting around to it. Also, the footage in the background is just me playing Minecraft with my girlfriend. We went ahead and started a new realm today, so hopefully you guys enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. I found a bundle of my old birthday cards after my mom died. Her notes inside them are terrifying me. My mother kept every birthday card I ever gave her. I didn't know that until after she died. The hospital sent her belongings home in a cardboard box. Most of it sat unopened for months before I finally started sorting through it. Near the bottom was a bundle of birthday cards tied together with a faded ribbon. Every card I had ever given her was there. Construction paper cards from elementary school, store-bought cards from my teenage years, even the terrible handmade ones I had thrown together the night before her birthday when I realized I had forgotten to buy a gift. At first, I was just reading through them for the memories, when I noticed something strange. Inside every card, my mother had written the date she received it. Beneath the date was a number. The first card said 14, the next 15, then 16. The numbers kept increasing every year. What bothered me was that they were always 1 year ahead of my actual age. When I reached my 18th birthday card, the number written inside wasn't 18, it was 19. A few cards also contained short notes. Still the same. Voice unchanged. Remembers the dog. They weren't messages to me. They looked like reminders she had written for herself. I called my aunt that night. The moment I mentioned the notes, she stopped talking. After a long silence, she asked whether I remembered getting lost during a family camping trip when I was 6. I remember the story because I'd heard it my entire life. I wandered into the woods. The adults panicked. Search teams were organized. A few hours later, I walked back out. Everyone always treated it like a funny family story. My aunt didn't. She told me my mother never laughed about it. Then she said something that made me drive to her house the next morning. According to my aunt, my mother believed something followed me out of those woods. She wouldn't explain further. I spent the next few weeks digging through old photographs and notebooks. That's when things started getting uncomfortable. My mother's notes weren't about me acting strangely, they were about things she claimed happening around me. One entry described hearing footsteps outside my bedroom window every night for a month. Another described finding muddy footprints on the ceiling of our back porch after a thunderstorm. The most disturbing entries all mentioned the same thing. A tall figure, standing just beyond the tree line whenever the family went outdoors. Nobody else ever reported seeing it, and my mother wrote about it for years. I eventually found the notebook she'd been using during the months after the camping trip. Most of the pages were ordinary. Grocery lists, phone numbers, appointment reminders. Then the writing changed. She described seeing someone standing between the trees while the search teams looked for me. At first, she thought it was another volunteer. Then she realized it never moved. According to her, it remained in the exact same spot for hours. The final entry about the woods was written the day after I came home. She claimed she saw the same figure standing behind our house that night. She wrote that it stayed there until sunrise. The last birthday card in the box was dated 6 months before she died. The number written beneath the date was 32, even though I was only 31. Underneath it, she'd written a final note. Still here. I spent a long time trying to figure out what she meant. Last week, I found a photograph taken during the camping trip. I'd never seen it before. The picture shows a group of volunteers searching the woods. My mother had circled something near the edge of the frame. At first, I thought it was a tree. Then I zoomed in. Someone was just standing between the trunks, watching the search. The timestamp on the photo was taken 2 hours before I was found. What bothers me isn't that the figure is there. What bothers me is that it's wearing the same jacket I was wearing when I walked out of the woods. My dad's roommate. This happened around 3 years ago, when I was about 14 years old. My parents had been separated for a long time, and I used to live with my mom during the week and my dad on the weekends. My dad always made significantly less money than my mom. He lived alone in a house that was honestly too big for one person, and he struggled a lot with paying rent. Then, one day, one of his friends asked if he could move in. His friend John,
needed a place to stay, and my dad needed money. So John offered to pay every week in exchange for one of the spare rooms. My dad agreed, obviously, and John moved in with us. Since I only stayed there on the weekends, I didn't see John that much. But whenever I did, I always felt uncomfortable around him. He wasn't really scary or aggressive or anything. Honestly, he was usually nice, but there was just something off about him that I couldn't explain. I don't mean this in a rude way towards people with mental illnesses, but even back then, I could tell something about him wasn't right, mentally. At some point, he had taken over one of the drawers in our bathroom, and one day, I looked inside it and found tons of pills, like a worrying amount. I had no idea what they were for, and I still don't, but it freaked me out a little. My dad also always had kind of questionable friends, so I already didn't love the idea of living with one of them. I was probably way too paranoid and way too obsessed with horror stuff at the time, but I even remember hiding a kitchen knife under my mattress in case he ever came into my room while my dad wasn't home. At the time, it felt more like a comical and ridiculous gesture rather than a self-defense weapon, since John had never given me any real reason to be afraid of him, but for some reason, that knife reassured me. Even my dad really didn't like leaving me alone with him, not because John had ever done anything weird to me, but my dad used to say he was a little weird. Still, he needed the money and John was his friend after all, so he stayed with us for around 2 months. The first month was normal. Nothing bad happened. John paid his part of the rent, and sometimes even bought groceries for us. Eventually, I got used to him being there. But during the second month, things started getting weird. I didn't know it at the time, but John had stopped taking his medication. My dad and I have a cat, and John started making disturbing comments about it. He would say weird things about how my dad acted weird around the cat, implying disgusting stuff that wasn't true at all. At first, it just sounded bizarre more than dangerous. Like I said, he had always been kind of odd, but over time, the comments got more intense and more detached from reality. Eventually, my dad started making sure John was either out of the house or in his room whenever I came over. Then one day, I got to my dad's house and noticed John wasn't there. Like usual, I asked where he was. That's when my dad told me he wasn't living with us anymore. Apparently, John had been acting seriously unstable for the last few weeks. My dad told me about the things that John had been saying and doing when I wasn't there. Things he never told me, about how a few days before I visited, they got into a huge argument. During it, John suddenly accused my dad of sexually abusing our cat, which obviously never happened. My dad told him to get out, but instead John completely lost it. He started yelling about how my dad had apparently abused me too, how he knew stuff that was going on, and a bunch of other insane stuff. The argument kept getting louder and more aggressive until it eventually turned physical. I'm gonna skip some of the details, but my dad finally managed to force him outside and called the police when he refused to leave. When the cops showed up and saw him in the state he was in, they arrested him and took him away. After that, we never really heard from John again, but for weeks after it happened, I was terrified every time I went to my dad's house. I kept imagining John showing up while I was home alone, angry at my dad, completely unstable. Every weird noise in the house freaked me out, but he never came back. Eventually, life moved on and we kind of stopped thinking about it. His mom one day came to collect his stuff, and after that, he completely disappeared from our lives. Until around 3 months later. One night, my dad sent me a news article. John was on the front page, and the content made my stomach drop. Like I said before, John had stopped taking his medication, and apparently, 3 months after getting kicked out of our house, he ended up going into some kind of psychotic episode. According to the article, he walked into an apartment building carrying a hammer. He smashed windows, destroyed parts of the building, and eventually set it on fire. A woman trapped inside her apartment died in the flames, and he violently attacked another person in the building with the hammer before the police eventually arrested him. The creepiest part was that nobody in the building even knew him. He had absolutely no connection to any of the victims. They were complete strangers. I'm pretty sure he's locked up now, but even years later, my dad and I still think about it sometimes. What would have happened if he stayed with us? It's crazy to think that we lived with a man accused of first-degree murder months before he snapped.
When I was 8, a stranger tried to get into our house.
I'm 25 now, but this happened when I was 8 years old, and it's one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. I grew up in a small town in Scotland. It was around that time of the year when the summer was ending and the autumn was beginning. The evenings were getting darker earlier, and there was a chill in the air, and the people were starting to light fires in their homes again. We lived in a nice area on the edge of town beside some woods. Our back garden was fairly large, around 25 meters long and 10 meters wide. At the very back was a gate that led into a small field which connected directly to the woods. Most of the houses in our area backed onto the same field and woodland. Our house sat on a slope, so we had a raised wooden decking area attached to the back of the house. A set of stairs led up to it, and from the decking you could enter the kitchen through a glass door. The kitchen was open plan and connected to the dining room. We had large windows looking out onto the decking and garden, and our dining table faced those windows. One night, sometime between 9 and 10 p.m., my twin brother, younger sister, and I were sitting at the dining table eating Chinese takeaway. It was one of our favorite treats as a kid. My mom was out at a friend's house, and my dad was out in the front chopping wood for the fire. The three of us were chatting away and enjoying our food when I suddenly got a horrible feeling that someone was watching me. I can't really explain it. One second everything felt normal, and the next I had goosebumps all over my arms and the back of my neck. Without thinking, I looked up at the window. The blinds were down but tilted. At first, all I saw was darkness. Then I saw him. A tall man standing on our decking, just staring at us. For a second, my brain couldn't process what I was looking at. I genuinely thought I must have been mistaken. Maybe it was my dad, maybe it was a shadow. But it wasn't. There was a man standing outside our house looking directly through the window at 3 children eating dinner. I remember freezing. Then I immediately told my brother and sister to get down. Something in my voice must have scared them because they listened to me straight away. All 3 of us dropped below the window. I crouched behind the kitchen counter and carefully peeked around the edge. That's when I saw the man start moving. He walked away from the dining room window and headed towards the glass kitchen door. For a moment, I lost sight of him because of the wall between the dining room and the kitchen. I was absolutely terrified. For some reason, I grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter. Looking back, it was ridiculous. I was only an 8-year-old kid. Even with a knife, I wouldn't stand a chance against an adult. But when you're that scared, you don't think logically. A few seconds later, he appeared at the kitchen door. I still remember seeing him through the glass. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't confused. He wasn't at the wrong house. He was staring directly at me. I was peeking around the counter, and he was looking right back at me. Then I watched him slowly reach for the door handle. My heart felt like it stopped. I remember silently praying the door was locked. He grabbed the handle, pulled, nothing happened. The door was locked. For a split second, I felt relieved. And then I realized something much worse. He hadn't just been watching us. He was trying to get inside. The second that thought hit me, I ran. I dropped the knife, grabbed my brother and sister, and sprinted through the house towards the front where my dad was. I remember my sister crying and all of us shouting at the same time. When we reached the garage, my dad was still chopping wood. Out of breath, I told him there was a man in the back garden trying to get into the house. My dad was a big guy. He boxed when he was younger and he had spent years hunting. The second he heard what I said, he grabbed the axe he had been using and took off running. Instead of going to the house, he sprinted down the side of it towards the back garden, axe in hand, shouting as he ran. The anger in his voice is something I'll never forget. By the time he got there, the man was already running. He must have heard us screaming through the house or heard my dad charging around the side. My dad caught sight of him near the bottom of the garden and immediately chased after him. The man bolted through the gate at the back, across the field, and towards the woods. My dad ran after him, shouting threats the entire time. But the guy had too much of a head start. Within seconds, he disappeared into the woods between the trees, and that was it. Gone. As far as I know, nobody ever found out who he was. Nobody was arrested. There was never any explanation. What still bothers me isn't just the fact that he was watching us, it's the fact that he tried the door. He wasn't just looking through the window out of curiosity, he wanted to get inside where there were 3 children sitting alone. I've thought about this countless times over the years, and I still can't come with any innocent explanation for that. Whatever his intentions were, they couldn't have been good. More than 17 years later, I still get goosebumps whenever I think about looking up from my dinner and seeing a stranger standing there in the darkness, silently watching us through the window.